I would like to call to order the regular of the Torch Lake Township Planning Commission of Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. All rise for the allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consideration of the agenda. This evening, there are two primary aspects of the agenda: the public hearing for special use request PCA 2021-35 for 31 Scoops for adding non-motorized watercraft rental services to the restaurant. And the second is special use request PCA 2021-36 special use permit request for Lake Living Services LLC, parcel number 05-15-106-014-20, located at 5884 North M88 Highway, Central Lake, Michigan, 49622 for a trade showroom. Here forward, I will refer to the 31 Scoops application and then for the Lake Living Services applications. In the agenda, there's some other items on the agenda. We have some report outs and a few items more administrative to go through this evening. So we want to get right to it and get to the public hearings for these and then actually deliberation by the commission. So are there any questions about the agenda this evening from the Planning Commission members? If not, could we have a motion to approve the agenda as written? Have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we will move on to conflict of interest. Does anyone have any items or any reasons for they feel that they have a conflict of interest for any of the topics of the agenda this evening?
Andy, due to the, due to the proximity of my residence to 31 Scoops, I think it would be prudent for me to recuse myself from that portion of this meeting.
Any other items that people would like to record, members would record as conflicts?
No.
Okay. So the minutes reflect that Bob will be recusing himself for the 31 Scoops application. Okay, with that, we move on to the public hearing we will begin with the special use request for 31 Scoops. From a process perspective, what will happen this evening is that we would like the applicant to come forward and share any comments they may have about their application. And then we will hear from the general comments from the public. If you do have a comment you would like to make, please keep your time to 3 minutes or less and fill out any comment cards, the actual, what do we call those? The speaker cards, whichever, and bring them up front here to Laura. So with that, special use request PCA 2021-35 31 Scoops. Is the applicant please come forward?
Sorry, should I remove myself from the meeting? Yes.
How are you doing this evening? Yes, my wife is the owner of 31 Scoops. She allows me to go ahead and work so I can get some ice cream. But anyways, we'd like to add into, canoes, kayaks, rentals of non-motorized type little vehicles in there for a lot of people that come through the area. We have a lot of people that come through the store that ask if there's anything around that they could do something along this line, and we'd like to be able to accommodate them. We'd like to, provide access so they can get down to the lake. And while they're down there, we'd have them park at our store, so it wouldn't, crowd the park up any more than what it is. But we think it would be something that'd be a little advantageous to the local economy, our local people and stuff like that. I'm not sure what else to say. I'd just like to, have your consideration.
Okay, thank you for that. At this point, what we'll do, I should explain this better in the front. We will now have public commentary about the request. And then what will happen is once we have the public hearing both for your application and the Lake Living Services application and the public commentary around that, then we will go into deliberation, and then the commission may come back for clarifying questions to you at that point as we actually deliberate on it.
No
Okay?
problem. Sounds good. Thank you.
So anyone wishing to make public comments regarding the 31 scoops, please come forward and fill out a speaker card.
I don't really know how to fill out the speaker card. I just have one comment. I would like to know where
Could-
these.
I'm sorry, sir. Could you please state your name and address, please?
I'm sorry. My name is Lyle Johnston. I live at 12305 3rd Street, officially in Kuwait, Michigan. But I tell FedEx it's Torch Lake. I am concerned about where ultimately these non-motorized crafts will be launched. Will they be launched? Is it a private endeavor going to be launched from the park? Is it going to be launched from a road end? Presumably, they will improve the local economy, but I'm not quite sure it'll improve the value of some of the lakeside houses. So I'm just expressing concern about how these non-motorized craft will be launched. Thank you.
The comment cards are on the back table. There's a pen and a patchy piece of paper by the agenda.
Thank you. Any other public comments regarding the 31 Scoops application? Right up here.
Thank you.
Hi, little, I'm tipping this down. I am Shelley Johnson. I reside at 5893 North M88, Eastport. My concern with the 31 scoops doing the non-motorized, as we already know, in that day park, it's a mess. The sanitation, the trash, it's a mess. Adding more people and putting them with activities to do, it just makes it even more of a mess. That mess is running into Torch Lake. I live on Torch Lake. I get Torch Lake access people with their big boats, loud boats, the kayakers from them. And 31A, the day park, isn't very far for the tip of Torch on the north end. So it's already getting really crowded, really dirty. The amount of debris I pick up on my shoreline is coming to be disgusting. So I am greatly opposed to adding any more to it. Thank you.
Any other comments this evening regarding the 31 Scoops application? Sarah, did we receive submitted comments? Did we do that, or did we cover that later?
We should cover any of the written comments that were received for this application. So we did receive one that was on your desk when you walked in that was anonymous related to the Scoops application. Do you want me to read them? You want me to summarize? What do you want me to do?
I think you could read them unless they're
Sure.
really long, but I
Sure.
think that this one looks to be perfectly readable.
So this is an email Monday, January 10th, 31 Scoops permit application, resident comment. Hi, Bob. I just saw the 31 Scoops special use permit application online, and I'm writing to express my deep concerns. I live close by the day park and have witnessed a lot of very unsafe activity on the water from folks who own their watercrafts. While the special use permit would benefit 31 Scoops, I think it would negatively impact the community and residents near the park, and more importantly, create a host of new safety issues from inexperienced folks out on the water. I believe it very unsafe to rent kayaks, SUPs, etc. on Torch Lake. This body of water isn't a lazy river. It's a heavily trafficked, large, deep, cold body of water that experiences large waves from weather and boaters and occasional rough storms out of nowhere that can easily knock someone off a SUP or capsized kayak, potentially far from shore. Inexperienced renters won't always keep safe distances from boats nor understand the current currents that can quickly take them away from the shore and potentially unable to safely return. I believe the waves, boats, currents, and storms would put renters in potentially perilous situations, and the township should not be permitting this to occur. Safety first. Thanks for all you do at the township. In your packet is a public comment from Roger DeVry, I'm going to say, on Prospect. He called with concerns that I don't know if that's property proposal, to rent watercrafts. They cannot pull them into the swim area, cannot use swim area at Day Park, and just wanted commissioners to be aware of his concerns. Another one was from Bill Shelton. Thank you for the notice. I'm going to appoint public hearing. I will not be able to attend the meeting, however, I do have concerns. Who will be liable for injuries when items are wrongly used at the township's restricted swimming area at the end of public dock road? And if the launch is to be used, who will pay the launch fee? I do wish the owners the best and certainly enjoy what they currently offer. It was nice to meet with you previously, before this meeting. And there's one from John Jenkins. I own the home directly west of the business at 2785 North US 31 and have been through all the changes before. My wife and I support the added business that Dennis endeavor seeking. I do not see it impacting on the residents area. It is still far less traffic than when Porch Lake Cafe was there. Thank you for the ongoing work to make our little village a nice place.
So that completes all of the written submitted comments?
Yes.
Okay, so from a process perspective, we are now going to shift the public hearing to the special use permit for,
Grab Bob.
Oh.
Thanks.
while she's doing that.
Poor Bob.
It was interesting, the SUP abbreviation, I assume that means stand-up paddleboard, not a special use permit.
I just like listening to Sarah try to pronounce that.
SUP.
It's not my favorite word, but I didn't want to go lying on it.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Welcome back, Bob. So we're going to shift the public hearing to the special use permit for Lake Living Services. With that, we would request that the applicant come forward and present any thoughts for us.
Good evening. I'm Rob Premier, 8619 Sun Bay Court in Williamsburg. Happy New Year. Traditionally, a new year brings resolutions and new beginnings. We've been working with the township on our M88 property for nearly a year now. Our sincere hope is a new beginning for the Eastport resale shop and a new positive relationship with our neighbors. And we do truly mean that. Tonight, you will discuss my application for a special use permit to operate Lake Living Services for my M88 lot zoned village residential. I'll share some background for those newer to the Planning Commission. I started Lake Living Services almost 7 years ago. I do home watch, home maintenance, and handyman repairs, from weekly cottage checks to deck rebuilding and bathroom renovation. The three-word description is I fix homes. I spend most of my time on the road visiting and working on my customers' properties, but need a home base to store my equipment, do my office work, and meet up with my one employee. Having a home base also legitimizes my business. One goal when I developed my first business plan was not to be a fly-by-night business owner. I have high professional standards for the business. One simple example is that I require employees to wear Lake Living Services branded shirts, collared shirts. You won't see us show up to work on your house in a faded AC/DC t-shirt. I will apply those same high standards to any building I own and operate. Currently, I rent a space in Bel Air, and I've dreamed of having a place of my own. Over half of my customers are in Torch Lake Township, so the M88 is a logical choice. I had my eye on the resale shop for years and was very pleased to be able to purchase it about a year ago. On to the special use permit. Tonight I have two categories of comments. First category is the special use permit itself. Over the past several months, although we got support for our business from Torch Lake Township, there have been differences of opinion among the residents. My intention with this special use is to continue to serve property owners in northern Michigan, again, over half of which are in Torch Lake Township, from the historic and well-loved location. We hope it's evident from our site plan that after improving the property, the result will be something that Eastport is proud of. We will update a crumbling, rundown building with an unmanicured lot and transform it into a well-maintained building that is pleasing to the eye. We plan to keep the essence of the building's charm that we heard in public comment was very important to the community. We have made accommodations and changes to our original plan based on public comment. We are part of the Eastport community and want to be a good neighbor. We listen to and want to minimize the impact on neighboring properties. First, you'll notice that we don't have a lighted sign, when you get to the packet, that is. Secondly, we propose limited parking spaces and will not have a parking lot. We've stated time and time again that we have essentially no foot traffic. The parking we have on the site plan is what is required by the ordinance. Next, I'd like to address Sarah's comments for tonight's Planning Commission packet. They will be the comments that are in bold red when you go through those pages. I'm giving you some page references also. First, on page 5, section 10.05C, Sarah indicated that we did not provide details on effective screening. As we talked with Sarah last week, we agreed that the zoning ordinance is not clear on what effect screening is supposed to be. According to our plans and the Wade trim maps included in the packet, there are screening areas both to the east and to the south of the property between our drive and the residential neighbors. First, to the east, there is at least a 10-foot screening area between us and our neighbors, the Agars. At a minimum, this will consist of a grass area which will be maintained like the Agars' lawn. We are open to the Planning Commission's recommendation if more is needed, keeping in mind what would look appropriate to the surrounding area, including to the Agars. And then to the south, there is at least 30 feet of natural screened area between the county ditch and our proposed drive. Currently, there is native vegetation consisting of grasses and small pine trees and one large cedar. Last summer, I started to mow some of the grass to clean it up and received positive comments from some of the neighbors that it was looking better than it has for years. Again, we are open to the Planning Commission's recommendation on whether they would like additional plantings there. On page 6, section 16.01C, Sarah indicates that we did not provide a description of the green belt near the parking area. Again, this is kind of the same thing. Similarly, there is no description as to what a green belt means. Next, on page 11, section 18.07-3, this addresses stormwater runoff, and Sarah states that we partially satisfied the requirement since we need an erosion permit. Our lot has good drainage toward the county ditch, as the Wade trim maps show. We submitted our site plan over 2 months ago on November 8th, asking for review and whether anything was missing. We were not told that we need a soil erosion permit until now, but we are more than happy to acquire one. We just hope that it will not put off any decision tonight. On page 12, section 18.07-8, sorry for all these. Again, it's the highlighted bold red notes there. Sarah's comments were that this was partially satisfied due to lack of detail. On page 20 of our application packet, our site plan addresses the dumpster screening as an opaque fencing around the dumpster 6 feet high. We will comply with the 8-foot height requirement by the commission or by the zoning ordinance. Our thought was to use a wooden fence. and that you can't see through. Also on page 12, section 18.07-13, this is related to fire suppression. Sarah refers you to the end of the report where we, again, will work with the fire department as I have actually back in Bel Air with my current location as to whatever is needed or required by the fire department there. The second category of comments is related to the planting of seed, that the rezoning referendum is related to the special use permit. I would not bring this up, but for the fact that at the last planning commission meeting, there was a question as to whether our application for a special use permit was in conflict with the referendum for our lot to be rezoned. The referendum is a separate and an independent issue pertaining only to the zoning of the lot. It is not specific to or related to any business, including ours. The wording on the petition is clear. Sarah, the zoning administrator, got confirmation from the township attorney that the two are unrelated. I ask that you not let unfounded seeds of doubt delay your decision on the special use permit. Thank you for reading through the site plan. It's a lot to go through, a lot of pages. We are here and available to answer any questions you have regarding the site plan or special use permit if bi-directional conversation is allowed within the context of this meeting. We want to answer your questions. We appreciate the time you devoted in advance to tonight's meeting and the time you give to Torch Lake Township overall serving on the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, as we get into the actual new business items, we likely will have questions. So thank you. So public comments. If you have any comments to make, please step up to the microphone and fill out a comment card.
Thank you. Yeah. That's fine.
I'm old and I need it to help me remember what to say. I'm Brian Agar. I live at 5911 North M88, and I own the property just east of the property that's under the special use permit. He has greatly improved the appearance of it. My question, I guess, is in reference to a trade showroom in the special use permit. He's not described it as a trade showroom. I don't think it's a trade showroom, but I'm so nervous about the use of those words, trade showroom. He has been very good neighbor and taking care of things, and I support that. I happen to be one of the people involved in the referendum, and the referendum was regarding the rezoning of the property to village business, because that rezoning then stays with the property until my grandchildren are gone. That was our concern. I believe his business will be good. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other public comments? Sarah, do we have any written comments submitted? Okay. With that, we can move through we are completed with the public hearing aspect of the meeting, and we can move forward with approval of meeting minutes from November 9th, November 23rd, December 6th, and January 6th. So meeting minutes for November 9th. I remember looking at these earlier, but where are they in the packet?
Toward the end.
It's very. Oh, here they are. So meeting minutes for November 9th. Were there any comments, edits, concerns over the minutes from November 9th? Hearing none. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of November
I'll
9th?
make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes for November 9th have been passed or approved by the Planning Commission. Moving on to the meeting minutes of November 23rd. Any comments, edits? May I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of November 23rd, 2021?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of November 23rd as written.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting minutes as drafted from November 23rd, 2021 are approved. Let's move on to meeting minutes from January 6th of 2022. Any comments? I had two comments. One was Graves stated the purpose of having a strategic planning meeting was to prepare to meet the demands of the changing dynamics of the community. I don't disagree with that. I guess I wanted to insert something was to organize the commission's next steps to ensure we are prepared for the demands of the changing dynamics of the community. Really what I was trying to establish there was that I wanted us to think about what steps or what things are we going to do, what meetings, what process are we going to take, and that was the main item there. Sure. Yeah, having a strategic planning meeting was to organize the commission's next steps to ensure we are prepared for the demands of the changing dynamics of the community. Sure. Any other comments about the minutes? Yes.
Excuse me, I don't know if this is something that was said about whom or whatever, but anyway, it sounds like, excuse me, in 6B, priorities for 2022, it says for adding the air park, the freeway anticipates it will take long to do the public interest. Oh, this was on redoing the master plan. The intent of the review is to add the air park as it's clearly missing from the plan and should have been included. I think if you look at the history, there is nothing that says it should be included in the master plan. As a matter of fact, the history shows that it was not included on purpose because it was a residential condo development. And because it was approved as that, it did not need to be the master plan as something separate. So I don't think that's accurate anyway. But I'm passing.
Those got left out of the packet.
There was one extra less. Set of minutes. These minutes were also recruited without that. And Barbara, I agree with you. I had some edits around there because from my vantage point, I felt that the existence of an air park warranted the planning commission to consider whether it should be added to the master plan, not that it should be. I don't know that we have the answer to that question.
Well, I think that I said though during the meeting that typically an airport would be included in your master plan.
It's not an airport.
The comment is a comment that I made where I said, the intent of the master plan review was to add the air park, and it's clearly missing from the plan. And, you know, so I don't know if I said it should be included, or it's typically included, or, you know, what that is, but, I mean, that, I could have said should, that would make sense too. So, I mean, I guess from your point in the history, that's one thing, but these are comments that I would have made, so we can't change the comments I did make in the minutes.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear in the minutes from tonight that I object to that statement for the reasons I stated. I also would strongly recommend and request that before we deal with the air park and figure out what we're going to do with respect to putting it in or not putting it in the master plan, or whatever we're going to do with it, that you go back and study the history of the air park so that you're fully versed in where it came from, when it was first conceived, when it was first created, the whole history of it. And then we can talk about it. Because I think there's a lot of stuff that's missing from the discussion on the air park. And it's not an airport, it's an air park, has always been an air park. I think there's a lot missing because the background, the history of it is not coming through in the discussions. You know, we're acting as if this, you know, loosey-goosey somehow never made it into the master plan, and loosey-goosey never made it into being called an airport. A lot of things that just aren't accurate. With you look back at where it started, what it was intended to be, what happened over time. It was never intended to be an airport. It was never intended to be in the master plan because it was approved as a residential development, a condominium residential development. And that's why it was never in the master plan as an airport, because it's not an airport. So anyway, those are my comments.
So I think what we need to do is capture those thoughts for the meeting today. And I would also like to clarify my comments in the minutes from last time, from January 6th, that Graves stated that he felt the existence of the air park is worthy of taking the time to consider whether it be added to the master plan. Do you want me to repeat that? Okay. Any other comments on the minutes?
I've got one that I think would maybe help clear up, Barbara, what you said. The, in 6B, said before Academy, you'd like to take time to read through the 2018 master plan, surveys, and associated meeting minutes. The conversation was one that included, we're not quite sure what was decided. So I propose that we all do that study and review to determine A, if we should update the master plan, and B, if so, how we should update it. That would include whether or not the air park is a part of it. I think there's probably something missing between that and Hawken feels the airport is missing. Just said that the planning commission decided we would spend some time in a study session, first on our own to review old meeting minutes so we have the history, we know the decisions that were made to help inform us as to whether or not we should update the master plan at all, and if so, how. That's a lot to put in the meeting minutes, but I think that's an important part for you to capture somehow, because that was the conversation we had last week.
I think that's a good clarification. I could not re-articulate it the way you just did, but it was a great clarification. By the way, I would comment that you do a wonderful job collecting the minutes. I would be dead in the water trying to do this. So thank you. So with those edits, can we have a motion to approve the minutes of January 6, 2022 with those edits?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended with those edits.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. We have a decision to approve the January 6th meeting minutes as amended with those edits we discussed. We have one more set of minutes. Do we have to approve these this evening? Because
I mean, if you want to take just a couple minutes and read through them, and then if there's any big issues, we can hold off, but they should be dealt with.
we can-
Take 5 minutes. or
yeah,
so
we can
and
do
read
that.
through them.
Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes? Any edits, suggestions? You have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 6th as drafted?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as drafted.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meetings of December 6, 2021 are approved as drafted.
That's fine, you actually remind me, I didn't check to make sure your microphones were on before the meeting, so if there's not a green light on, they're not on. They need to be turned on.
And also, I'll do my good deed for the day and ensure that everybody please pull your mic as close as you can, as comfortably as you can, and speak loudly into it, because we've had some feedback that people cannot always hear. Now we open up for public comment on any remaining agenda items not specific to the two special use applications for this evening. Is there any public comments of anyone that would like to be made at this point? If not, we move to ongoing reports. Zoning administrators report.
Sure, included in your packet at the end is the zoning administrator's report for permits and what we've been doing. I won't go through that, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to either get a hold of me or we can ask them tonight. But as always, our phone is always available, so if you have any questions or members of the public have any questions related to it, directly give us a call.
I have one question in general, not specific to this report, but what would be your sense of permit activity applications in general across the board? Is it going up, staying the same, going
It's
down?
going up with the exception of, the last couple of weeks, because we got right at Christmas, everything slowed down. And typically when we get snow, things slow down a little bit, but then, once we get to the new year, generally we pick up just a little bit because everybody's thinking about all those projects they didn't get done last year and they're gonna do this year. So I haven't seen that pickup yet on the North Lake side, but I would anticipate here that we'd see a couple more applications. But I do believe between this year and last year, that part's not in here, but I believe we have quite a few more permits issued this year than even the year before.
Okay, any other questions for Sarah? Okay, the Planning Commission representative to the ZBA report.
Andy, the last meeting was canceled due to lack of no business on the agenda, so nothing to report.
Any Any questions for Bob on that? Okay, and then Jason, I think you're up next with the Township Board
Sure.
Representative.
At our last meeting, Jairus Rubin was at our meeting. He's one of our commissioners, and he said Antrim County is looking for 2 people that are licensed builders to be in an appeals committee. Our board approved the 2022 meeting for all of next year. We also approved the adoption of the Torch Lake Township Policies and Procedures, Articles 1 through 16. Torch Lake Township had a vacancy on the Board of Review, and that is now filled. Jackie Peterson will be serving on the Board of Review. And then they're starting to talk about maybe possibly making our cemetery a little bit bigger. Sounds like we have 10 acres over there that we can take advantage of. Talking about upgrading our camera systems. And they're also talking about maybe possibly hiring a full-time police officer for Torch Lake Township.
That would be big news, I think. So any questions for Jason?
Jason, I've got a question. You say they're talking about it. Is it items that are going to be continued in conversation to?
It's just the
determine?
very start of it, so we
Okay.
can people can start talking and thinking about it, and I'm sure it'll come at another couple months or something where the public can give their opinions on it, but it's just a very, very beginning process of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No further questions for Jason. Now we'll move on to correspondence. Have one item of correspondence that was submitted. Received an email, myself and Bill Dvorak received an email today from Deb Graber. I'm going to read the email. Please read the aloud at the Planning Commission meeting tonight, Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. Unfortunately, I will be unable to attend tonight's meeting. I would like my letter attached to the meeting minutes as well. Thank you. Thank you to all the members of the Planning Commission volunteering your time to represent the people of the township. It is so important for the public to have a voice. The Torchport Air Park presented their plans several years ago to the Planning Commission requesting a residential condominium association. Please research what was originally presented and approved by the Torch Lake Township Planning Commission. Check the records in early 2000s. The file is over a foot thick. Please also note that Mary Ann Jorgensen, former owner of the air park, was a member of the Planning Commission for several years, specifically during the last master plan update for the township. If the air park needed to be added to the master plan, why wouldn't the owner of the air park support it and make sure it was included? Unless there was something already in place, such as an approved use for a residential community / condominium association that also had a couple of grass airstrips that have been already approved by the township. Your planning and zoning administrator thinks there was an error made not including the air park in the zoning and master plan. Please review all the facts before taking time to undo something that was done by the prior commissioners based on their knowledge at the time and based on the information presented. The primary use of the Torchport Air Park was set up as a residential community governed by a condominium association bylaws. The majority of the property was zoned residential for housing, not to create a large commercial development or add multiple acres of hangars to disrupt the residential community. Please take some time to research and review the original requests made by the Jorgensens that created the Torchport Air Park. Chris Grobel, assuming I'm pronouncing that right, the former planner, was the planner for the township for 16 years. The community, the township board members, and the planning commissions never felt the air park needed to be included in the master plan. The master plan was created and updated multiple times since the 1980s. Please do your due diligence before you make changes to the ordinance or the master plan. Please also note that any changes to the zoning ordinance should be support the master plan. There were surveys done in both 2008 and 2018. Both are on file at the township. Below there are maps referenced for last Thursday's meeting. So there's some maps included. Sarah, I don't believe there's any other correspondence, or is there? Okay. So with that, we're going to move to the new business portion of the agenda, and specifically consideration of the special use permit application for 31 Scoops.
Yeah.
Yes.
That one signage, the Keep Blue, does that need to be read or anything? That correspondence that I shared?
I don't think so. It was just a
Okay.
question.
So Sarah,
Would you please walk through the 31 Scoops application for the Planning Commission?
Sure. I'll just go through my report that was in the packet for the Planning Commission and kind of talk about it a little bit. So we have a request to add in this non-motorized boat rental, water toy rental. It does involve 3 parcels in the village business area. It's got the existing restaurant location with the parking lot, and then there's some parking lot on the immediate, property immediately to the south. And then a couple of lots down, there's a existing house, and there's talk about putting a trailer out there to store the canoes, kayaks, the water toys when not in use. So I included all those different parcels in here. I think it's important. It's really easy when you're looking at the review, you're going, oh, it's at the restaurant. But we also need to consider, and I did mention in the report, some of the screening and, that the piece to the south. So, I mean, it's all one application. It is kind of split up, but, most of our focus will be on the restaurant property, but I also want you to consider that. I call it the dwelling property, just to split them up. I've got restaurant property and dwelling property. So that, it's all part of the application. So included in the report is anything that's missing is in red and is bold. One of the items that's missing is the area of the property. Thought that was included when I reviewed it the first time around. I couldn't find it the last time I looked at it. I don't know if anybody else saw it maybe somewhere on the site plan, but that wasn't provided. And then kind of walking through, adjacent properties, adjacent zoning. It's all in that area, zoned village business. They're right in the village business area. So it's a use that's allowed with a special use permit, which means that it's a use that is anticipated to be okay in that district, but may have appropriate locations for that use. It may not be on every village business lot, but on certain lots makes the most sense. So kind of walking through the report, we did receive the hand-drawn site plans, and then there was an email exchange that I had with the owner that's all in the packet to try to explain it a little bit more, what they have going on in the project. And what else do I want to mention here? So kind of walking through the ordinance, you'll see on page 9 of 18, talking about parking, talking about that green belt for the parking areas for the adjoining residential uses. This is something like with the next application, because it's similarly zoned in the village district, talks about a green belt. There's not really any details on it. I think the Planning Commission has some flexibility to determine what that green belt should look like for the parking. This does adjoin residential area. This does, although looking at it right now, it talks about residential zone. So, I mean, it's the village business, but we allow residential in that zoning district. So I guess thinking, is that a residential zone or is it a commercial zone? It's kind of a mixed use zone. Might not, I don't know, might not be as important there, but something to talk about and consider, even though it is existing there. The parking calculations, that was information that wasn't provided, and we will need to make sure that there's enough parking for both uses there. We have the existing restaurant use, and then this new use of the sales. We don't have any of I don't have any details on the restaurant use as far as how much of it is used for restaurant, what that looks like. So we'll need a little bit more details, floor plan information to be able to determine. The biggest issue is if they don't have enough parking for the restaurant use, it'd be non-conforming, the parking. But we don't want to add an additional use to a non-conforming parking and then make it more non-conforming because it doesn't have enough spaces. So until we get that number
So
and those calculations.
To play that back, it's currently non-conforming as a restaurant, correct?
No,
Not for parking.
I don't know. For the park, just
Just for
talking
parking.
parking. I don't know because I don't know how many spaces they're required to have for the restaurant and how many spaces they do have. So we need to get a little bit more information so we can determine if they have the minimum number of spaces required just for the restaurant use, the existing, before we add the additional use on top of that. And there may be some relief built into the ordinance, but at this point, we just don't have that information, so I can't even have that discussion to say, we're okay, we're not okay, it's a problem, it's not a problem, we just need additional information for that parking. On page 10 of 18, these are in the ordinance, this is kind of your checklist of what should be required on your site plan in the ordinance. And so you can see as you go through, there's a couple items where it says item G, it says not provided, not required. This says that the zoning administrator may waive requiring a professional drawing of this. This is something where this applicant has been before the planning commission in the past and used the same or similar site plan for approval for what they were doing in the past. But this is something that just because this is one of the first, I think, site plans or special uses, if the planning commission is going along and you're finding that we really need to have a better drawing, I won't waive that requirement for that professional drawing. So you can let me know tonight how you feel about that. And we do have, quite a few new members. So even if I didn't know what the old planning commission said, we can always go forward and say, this is what you'd like now. So that's something that we can talk about more too. So again, you got the not provided, total acreage, completion schedule, and some of these they can probably address tonight as we're walking through here. Needing setbacks and adjoining parcels and structures on there, some building dimensions. Then on 12 of 18 talks about some kind of utility information. And then signage, I put not provided existing just because they have signage. I don't know that they're going to change it. That's kind of a question. They may say tonight, we're not going to do any signage. We can go, okay, we don't need it. And then that kind of wraps up that section before we get into standards of approval. So I did go through the standards of approval. There's quite a few that say partially satisfied, just because I feel like we do need a little bit more information on the site plan. But also, as you'll see in my report summary on page 18 of 18, there's some additional questions, which were included in that email exchange as well. And they did provide some detail on it. But I think that there are still some outstanding issues related to how this is going to work in the township. Are they using township lunches? That we heard some of those concerns tonight, how that functions. It's not really a beach at the launch. So are these people, if people are shuttled down there, what do they do while they're waiting for the ride? There's parking spaces there. How long is the car parked there? How if they take multiple people down, how many cars are left in the parking lot that now we're taking away from the restaurant? And I only say that because not everybody's car is equipped to put a kayak or canoe on to move. So they're going to, even if they, there's probably people that are going to need help getting that boat to the water. And so how does that function? What's that look like? And all of that, plus some of the loading and unloading. I know this seems kind of like a minor addition to the site, but how does that function in the parking lot? It's just off the parking lot. So are the cars going to be in the drive aisle, or are they going to have designated kind of loading, unloading spaces that somebody would pull in to get the kayak off the trailer to put it on their car? And, some of those, how does it function? Because from a township perspective, we just want to make sure that we're not causing any issues on the site when we're approving something. But also, I think with just a little bit more details and some of those clarification questions that the applicant might be able to help us out, to get there. And the planning commission, I guess, will need to decide if it does involve township launches, what that looks like, if you want the township board to kind of get involved and sign off on that part of the operation before the planning commission is kind of agreeing to it. Like, I know it's a little cart and horse and, but at the same time, if the planning commission says, oh yeah, sounds good, you can go launch at the township park or the township launch. And then the township board is kind of on the back end trying to enforce something or deal with something after that use has been approved. So it's, I don't have an answer for that, but I don't know, with the planning commission, if you have any feelings one way or another on that.
Well, it does seem to be a concern that regardless of what action the planning commission might take on this, that is an outstanding core question that we would have to have addressed, as you say, by the board. So it seems like, a consideration here might be that we go through this, raise the questions we have. We have that item still to address, as far as the board and the launching aspect of the park. But we have many other things to address too. So it's, rather than kick it to the board to do that now, when there might be other items that we have concerns, I think we kind of vet it the way we can, but nothing can be approved until it goes to get feedback from the board. And whether that's a formal approval or just their guidance or whatever I don't know what the process would be for that, but it seems like those things kind of have to go hand in hand.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think it would be good if you have any outstanding questions or issues or additional information you need from the applicant, state that tonight. And then if the consensus from the planning commission is to get the board involved or get some direction from the board, we can do that at the same time so that we're not waiting for one and then come back and go, oh, but we need A, B, and C. Let's tell them what we need right now. And if something comes up after the board discussion or however that happens, we'll deal with that then. But I'd like to keep them moving forward. So if you, throw out your concerns, I can write down a list of additional items we need and we can go through that.
Okay. So Sarah, anything else that you would like to add before we start diving into our questions?
I don't think so. I think that's all I have for now. But, as always, I'm available for questions that you may have or any concerns.
I have a quick question for you. When you did the report, had you received the response, the email response, and factored in anything that they added on there?
Yeah, I had already had that.
Okay. Thanks.
So I think from a process perspective, we have two kind of main ways of looking at this. One is to just get general questions about understanding what their intentions are. And once we have a good grasp of that, then we move into the checking it against the standards. That's the way I look at it. So I don't think we're ready to look at standards yet because we won't even understand quite what they're doing yet. So, so I guess from that point, I would just start opening it up to the commission for questions and just kind of get into the dialogue. And if the applicant is available to answer questions, please stand by. I'm sure we'll have some here shortly. Anyone want to kick it off?
Yeah, I would like to have an idea of how this whole thing's going to work. Where are the boats going to be sitting or the non-motorized water toys going to be sitting? How are people going to come through your lot and pick up what they want to pick up? Or are you delivering them to them? How's all that going to work?
Yes, please come forward. Thank you.
At this point, we figure there'd be several ways in that people can come by and pick them up as far as that goes and take them, and they can take them home to their own residence, or they can take them to the day park. They can go to the DNR launch down at the north end, and there's other avenues also. If they do want it delivered, we will set it up to, hook up to it and deliver it. The canoes and kayaks will be set up on a trailer, and it'll be over towards the propane tank, and the area is kind of off to the, the southeast corner now, so kind of be out of the way of the parking, so it shouldn't really affect our parking too much. And like I said, there's other avenues of, launch as far as that goes and that. So we're going to be open to different thoughts in that. It's not necessarily to be launched through the day park. It's just one avenue. There's multiple avenues to go from there.
Okay. I'm concerned about it, if you have, say you're potentially renting 60 kayaks.
I don't see that much, but that'd be nice.
Well, okay, that's kind of my point. Are you limiting it at all? I mean, do you have a number of non-motorized water toys that you're talking about having, or?
We haven't really set a limit on it, but I don't see, there's several different, the stand-up paddle boards, the kayaks, the canoes, and like that. At this point, I wouldn't see more than 10 of any of them in that. So, if it would go beyond that, I don't see that happening, but I guess it's always a possibility. So I guess it'd be something to be addressed. And then as far as access and that, if we get, we have our own residents just down a couple houses and stuff like that, so we could park down there extra stuff if we needed to. But I don't see that happening, as much as I'd like to.
Okay. The thing about how this is going to work in your parking lot and so on, that also has to do with the safety. Because, people loading and unloading kayaks at the same time that you've got traffic going through there. Do you have something set out as far as separating things out or separating pedestrians from car traffic?
As it stands right now, we do have a little fence on the one corner of the parking lot, which is separate from the grass. Is where we were thinking about parking the trailer itself. So there would be a little bit of a separation from the actual traffic in there as far as people coming through the lot and going through. And we could probably define that even more so if we need to keep it more separated.
Do you have, are you required to have insurance to have
Oh,
this
yes.
business?
We've
Okay,
already been checking that out. Insurance agent's supposed to be getting back with us, so
okay.
yeah, we wouldn't think about going into business without insurance.
I'll let somebody else ask him questions.
You're doing a nice job. Keep going.
Were you good for it?
No.
Okay.
First of all, I want to commend you. Business is not easy, and you're willing to put yourself out there and serve the community. Having said that, I do have quite a few concerns. First of all, and this is kind of a bigger issue and struck me, the application wasn't complete. And that is a requirement to come before the commission. And just as an operational thing, I would like feedback from the rest of the commission, how you feel about having things come that have a lot of things to address, rather than having them said, okay, you're doing good, you need to keep going, this isn't complete, this isn't complete. I think, first of all, it puts the applicant in a spot where they may not be fully prepared. And second of all, it puts the commissioners in a position of maybe unfairly judging because you don't have enough information.
Yeah.
So I would strongly recommend that, encourage you to keep going. But just one of the things you just said does concern me, where you're kind of vague on how many you're going to have. As a business owner, you need to know your capacity to handle and manage and store, and that should be really firm in your mind, to me.
Part of that is getting help, and if we don't have the help, then we're going to have to keep things limited, and that's
Okay.
part of the issue, I guess,
Okay.
for us.
But I would rather you start out with something you can manage and handle and have it a firm number.
Mhm.
And then, we're doing really well with that, and add on to it. So I'm encouraging you to get really firm or really secure in what you're bringing forward, that you can handle, you're going to be successful, because that's what I want for you. I want you to be successful.
Yes.
So I have concerns about safety. I have concerns about where they're going to be launched. I would have preferred you have already talked to DNR, already talked to Day Park, and really getting, an agreement of how this is going to operationalize?
Yeah, well, we've been talking to the day park, and we've been trying to attend the day park meetings and stuff on that. We were here for the last one, what was canceled. We've been trying to follow through on that. And like you said, it is also an issue for not just the day park, but other, things along the whole line and that. And
Sure.
we've been trying to follow up on it. And to my knowledge, I thought we had pursued anything that's been addressed to us. I thought we've answered it. If we overlooked something, then I apologize for that, because we do like to keep ahead of the thing if we can at all possible.
Well, and it's a process, to say, for the commission to say, no, you have more work, doesn't mean, no, you can't do it. It means you have more work. I was concerned when I went to the parking lot, trying to visualize, because I think you're also planning on putting a deck so that there isn't like a circle around your building.
Well, that's already been closed off, and it's in one of our drawings, and I can show it to you. It's in here if you need to.
Right, but I was really trying to see that you have the capacity of size for what you're trying to do.
Well,
also.
at this point, we have like 42 spaces for parking spaces, and we've never really filled them up in that. And in fact, last couple of years, we have also taken on additional parking from the day park itself, where people couldn't get in down there. They came up to our place and parked it, and we still had capacity open.
Okay. Okay.
It does remind of, we need to have clarity on what the parking requirements are.
Right.
And then, obviously, he's got a picture here, the applicant has a picture here of where the parking spots go around the building and so forth. And some, I think all of them are painted, or I tried to visit, but there was the snow cover, I couldn't.
Yeah, all the ones on the asphalt and that, on the public dockside road, that's all pretty much gravel with bumper blocks and them like that. And that wood is not painted in that, but that would be something that we relate to address later on and have it painted and paved also in time.
But we would need to, know definitively, are we meeting requirements or not, based
Right.
on the comments you made previously.
Yeah, we would just need a floor plan or additional information about the existing restaurant to determine the parking spaces. They've delineated them, they've given us numbers, we just need to verify that that's sufficient to be existing.
I had a question, I think, for you, Sarah. If they're going to put parking on the public dock road side of the building, is that going to be in the easement?
Well, I was just thinking about that because I think that that's probably just been parking that's kind of occurred over time and now is parking. But it is likely in the road right of way, and our parking ordinance or our zoning ordinance, the parking section doesn't allow you to back directly into the road. So I guess we'd need a little bit more research to see if that was approved or existed, maybe non-conforming situation, or if it's just something that never was approved and has grown over time, to be able to count those spaces towards the total number.
Right.
The prior business, the Torchlight Cafe, when they were there, they used the whole, both sides in that, off of public dock and on the other side. And at that point, they had capacity for 80-some people. We have nowhere near that capacity.
So just kind of generally thinking about how you were thinking of kind of marketing this capability that you're adding, the new the paddle boards and so forth. It sounds to like your intention is to make paddle boards and others rentable. And it's not so much your problem to take it somewhere. You're not, are you providing transportation or not?
If need be, in that, each customer would be an individual case and stuff. Some people don't have the capacity in that, so at that point, we could hook up the trailer and pull it to wherever we need to. Otherwise, you can also have units that you can attach to it and you can walk it down if you wanted to walk it. But yes, it could be done pretty much any way we want. And we'd like to be flexible. So that, give everybody an option. They wouldn't necessarily be limited to, okay, well, we can't get a vehicle there, then we can't do it. But we'd like to, provide it for them.
Okay, so it sounds like with capacity limits based on kind of labor that you might have or not have, you would rent items and then help people if they ask for it.
Yes.
To take it to the park or take it someplace else, to their home even?
Yep, they could take it home at that point. We've checked out different insurance, how they could do that. And so they can do it from a private residence or like you said, from another beach access and that. There are several located in the township at the end of some of the roads and that, but that's not necessarily what we'd, like to do. We'd like to do it in a way that would be as safe and logistically possible without causing, too much grief and anguish.
Okay.
Is this like a half-day rental, all-day rental?
It could be, 4 hours, half day, yeah, all day. It'd be different.
Meaning
options.
it's not by the hour, so you got new people coming there every hour?
No,
running
we
it?
prefer not to. That'd be, a lot of extra grief and anguish and stuff like that. And then at that point, we'd have to charge a higher fee to, accommodate that. And we'd like to do it so that people come in, for at least 4 hours and then spend some time with it. And, so we'd like to, kind of limit that possibility. We'd like to keep it to, like I said, half day, 4 days, 4 hour or a day, or it could even be overnight. For people to come up for the weekend and that, they may want to rent it for the weekend.
Who shares that building with you?
Rick Randall and his wife Audra,
And are they in support of this?
yes, they are.
I got one more question.
Okay.
It was, actually, I got a couple things. Before the holidays, it was either planning commission or the board meeting. Your wife was here
Mhm.
and discussed about selling alcohol there. My concern is person comes in, rents a kayak, possibly gets a 12-pack, takes it out to the lake, and I guess I'm concerned about the safety as well. Are you guys still planning on pursuing that?
For takeout beer and wine, yes, we are at this point. But as far as also, they wouldn't necessarily, they could come in a kayak from us and they could run down to the Eastport Market, pick it up, do the same thing. We would just try to be very strict about who does buy any alcohol. It's going to definitely be a case. My wife used to work for the Liquor Control Commission, and she's very adamant about, approving who buys and who doesn't. So, this is definitely an ongoing concern.
And I agree, they could very easily just go to the Eastport Market and buy it themselves there too. I do agree with that. My only other concern is I see Third Street mentioned in here and for a possible launch site. It's pretty tight down there. If you go down there, you're probably gonna have to use somebody's driveway to turn around. If you back all the way down, you got another side road, you might not see anybody coming out of that. So if you pull down forward and then you want to back out, now you got people coming over the hill, you might not see people that way. So
We prefer not to use Third Street if we could help it. But if we were to do that, then at that point, I'd almost pretty much have to walk it from the store down there, so there would be no traffic in that. Because like you said, there's no place down there to turn or move around or anything like that. And it's not really advantageous for launching kayaks there at that point. It's steep and it's rocky and everything like that. So I try to avoid that as much as possible anyways.
okay,
Yeah.
I agree with that too.
What is the Third Street access? I know where it is because I drove past it, but what type of access is that?
It's
Just kind of like a hill going down. There's a set of steps in there going down that was just put in not too long ago by the township.
So it is public?
Yes.
It's just like, it's a road end more
It's a
than
road end, okay.
I wouldn't call it a launch, more of just, it's a public road end that has the steps as the improvement.
Okay. I have a high-level question, not necessarily associated to the applicant. Like I think of Elk Rapids, there's a boat launch there right near where the new harbor, the dam store is and the other things. I didn't swear. That's what it's called. But that launch right there used to be, and I think there may still be a place where you can rent stand-up paddle boards and things similar to what is being described here. Do you know if there's been any research done or any follow-up with them, the Village of Elk Rapids, to talk about kind of how they looked at this and learnings they've obtained because of it?
I haven't reached out to them,
Yeah.
but I would be happy to do that and see if they have any feedback for us.
Yeah, and they also, there's a store right actually right in the downtown area that rents kayaks as well. I don't know if they're related or not.
There's 2 or 3 of them in town, in Elk
Yeah.
Rapids on rent. And then as far as the launch that you're talking about, it is set up for handicapped people. So they can come in and launch the canoes and kayaks if you're handicapped in that. And there is public funding available for something along this line. If it's something that the township would like to pursue, they could have something like that put in, and that, and it'd just be an enhancement. And it'd be a lot safer place, a way of launching canoes and kayaks in it.
And last summer, they did start running kayaks at the Torch River Bridge as well, right there at their real estate office. And that's pretty busy down there, and I do not know how it went, so.
Well, it's certainly a concern of mine just because just safety in general, not just the matter of getting the kayak into the water. And I'm talking specifically around a boat launch where you've got power boats coming in and people backing up, and it's already a hazard with swimmers nearby, which is the issue down here. But then when they have the paddle boards and so forth coming around and people just get up and they're trying to learn and boop, and then there goes the ski boat right near them. So that's just something that I think we have to vet thoroughly. And I think that's a matter too, beyond just the planning commission. That's probably a board. Not trying to put more work on the
Yeah.
board, but I think it's a broader issue than just our group here
Right.
discussing that, the implications of that.
Yeah, I think some of it, there's the board, there's a day park committee that, deals just with the day park. So if that's in use and how that functions. And so that, you had mentioned about trying to get on, talk to them. What I would suggest is on our website, we have Virginia, she's got her contact information. That way, I don't know the whole process, but she could actually put you on the agenda and instead of just trying to be public for public comment.
We've talked to her about getting
Okay.
the dates of the meeting so we can attend. And we have
Well,
several.
what you'd want to request to be able to talk to them, so
Yes, we
not
did.
just show up and give public comment.
Yeah, well, we put in, last time we was here for the meeting, which is December, I think, 6th, but it was canceled for several reasons and stuff like that. And I believe that's the lady that we talked to. She took our names and like that. We, wanted to be put on to the next meeting.
Okay.
We haven't heard anything back yet.
Yeah, and I don't know the details of that, but that's, I would suggest that. But so we kind of have those two different groups, the day park committee kind of works for the board, but they're very specific to just kind of that area and that launch. But I think some of that would be good to get maybe their input on that or how that functions, if they're interested in using that property.
And I think one question now is if somebody, irrespective of the applicant's intentions of what they would like to do, if somebody just comes down to the day park right now and has a kayak, where do they put it in? Do they walk it to the beach? Is there any rule that says they can't do that or not?
Right.
Those are questions that I don't know the answer to.
Did you say they can or cannot?
Can they or can they not? do
Yeah,
that?
I don't know.
I'll let you finish. I've got a couple of questions and a few comments, but go
Sure,
ahead.
Go
and
ahead.
finish.
No, I was just going to say that's,
At this point, they have been putting them off to the left of the boat launch and that where there's some rocks in that, which is very dangerous, but that's the only place that they've been allowed to put them in. They put them down along the side there, taking the grass and take them down right beside the power boat. So, but that's where it's been allowed to go. It is not allowed in the swimming area or anything else at this point, which is something that should be addressed.
yes, I guess, and I'll be quiet. But I think that kind of core question about whether, regardless of whether you are permitted to rent these at your facility there, I think the question is rules or some kind of a standard should be set up at the park around how these types of things can be launched, to address the item you just said,
Yes.
just from a general public safety perspective. So I think that's one core question that I think we need to get answered, and that would help us frame how we might look at this application.
And could I just add one more thing? The DNR site, I don't know the answer to this, but it's not supposed to be a swimming area even. So if you're recommending people take things to a place where if the DNR got involved and said, no, you're not even supposed to be here, then, your relationship with your customer. So those kind of things need to be figured out.
Yeah. It is a boat launch though, and that's what we'd be considering. We'd be launching the canoes and the kayaks and stuff like that. So it'd be
Okay.
within the parameters of what the, wanting to do with it.
Okay.
Bill, you had some questions?
Yeah, so my first question is, someone drives up from Traverse City with kayaks on the top of their car, can they launch at the day park if they don't have the township resident sticker now? They pay their $5 or $10 and launch.
Yeah, for $10.
Okay. I think we owe the applicant some pretty clear direction and advice. I understand the concerns about litter. I understand the concerns about use, waves in the lake, but this happens a lot. I think it's a good business idea. My question to you was, would you consider limiting the number of rentals?
Oh, yeah.
To 10 each?
Yeah.
Because I think there's clearly an interest. It seems like the committee is going to not make a decision tonight, I believe. I think a site plan that shows some things, where things would be stored, how they'd be screened, whether or not access could come off and only off of Public Dock Road, something that limits the number to alleviate some of the concerns that residents in the committee are expressing, and provide some clarity to the site plan so we know how it might be used.
Okay.
But I think I also hear us talking about some concerns that are not really related to the application, the business expansion. They're just concerns we have about people in the lake, noise, whether or not people will drink or not, which are good things to talk about, but in my opinion, not related to what you're asking for. But there are some things that I think we ought to have some better information on before we can say go or not.
We'll be willing to answer anything in that, and if we can't, find out the answer, if we don't have the answer, we'd find it out and set it up, and like I said, maybe set some clear lines and definitions of what would be.
Yeah, that's what I mean by, I think we owe you good direction. What are the questions we have specifically, so you know what to answer? What do we feel is missing from the site plan? What do we feel is missing from the application in general? Understand frequency of renters. I've seen a lot of different rentals for kayaks, stand-up paddle boards. I've never seen many of them very busy. That doesn't mean that this won't be.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be self-limiting it. But if there's concerns by the neighbors and by this committee, we could say, let's limit it to a certain number, 10 each. You mentioned maybe 10 each of three things, and
Right.
that's an idea. But it doesn't seem like we're going to be making a decision because we want more information. I just think we ought to be real clear on what more information we want, so we don't string this idea along for a long time.
I would agree with that, Bill. And I think that's kind of where I was going with the Elk Rapids question, just because that's right in the heart of a pretty busy area with a lot of shops and stuff around. And I'd be curious to get a sense of just how many do they rent? Is it dozens, or is it just a few a day, or what? I have no sense of what that looks like.
And I had one more thought I wanted to add. I read through, when I read through the packet, I read through, maybe it'd be a good idea to put a launch on the south side of the dock. I think that ought to be a day part committee decision. I wouldn't be supportive of doing that just for your business application. But if it's something that the whole township thinks would be beneficial to people who frequent the day park now, then that's a different idea. Then I'd support that.
Because we have, trying to get in, like you said, and we want to discuss that possibility. And it was brought up to us from a few other people about the same concept in that, of putting it on the, on the south side of the dock right there. And something like that, if it was set up with the concept of what they have in Elk Rapids down there by the dam store, I think it'd be very feasible, and it would be a safe way for people entering and accessing without interfering with each other, and keeping it, clear and definite lines.
Some great pizza, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So, Sarah, process question here. It occurs to me that there are a number of items, obviously a number of questions that we have for the applicant. Some of them are kind of safety related. Some are a little bit, I would call them kind of capacity related, like how many kayaks, what's the parking? I think those are probably the biggest kind of core sections of them. Should we try to capture all those questions now, or have you captured enough of them to be able to proceed working with the applicant to come back to the commission? And then we have the core question back to the board too about the day park, which I think are fundamental outside of the application, or just general how to launch, where should they launch, safety issues down there for just anybody that comes in with a kayak, for instance.
Yeah, I think that unless anybody has any other very specific questions, I have a list of kind of items that need to be addressed that I can work with the applicant trying to get through that. Direct them to the township board, Day Park, to get some clarification on that. Is that something you're looking for, an answer, definite direction from before you see it again? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we would like to see these items addressed before we see it again, yes.
Okay,
Unless the commission has any other
No, I
thoughts.
agree
Yeah.
with you.
okay.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of stuck here. Some of these things we're stuck because they're outside of our purview to review. Other things, we just wouldn't be able to make an adequate decision. And I appreciate your thoughts around this. Clearly, you got some great ideas and understand your kind of views of wanting to proceed. But, we have to look out for the township as a whole and certainly the issues concerning this particular application. So,
Understand that. That's why we started, try to get an early start on things because we knew, there'd probably be a lot of questions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do our own research and that it's something new for us, a whole new avenue. So, we've been kind of trying to figure out a way also. We're trying to do it so it's a way that everybody comes out halfway satisfied.
absolutely, yes. And the other thing too is that something to keep in mind, I think, for the future as, some of this starts to unfold and these questions come back to you, even things like the capacity, I mean, we have to think through items like, okay, maybe it is limited to 10, but a decision can carry forward. So even if you were to sell the business down the road and the next person has bigger plans or what have you, we have to think through what the implications are of that. So please understand that's where we're coming from.
Understand that.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to add, I agree with you, Denise. I would really like to see anything that comes to us be complete so that we can make an informed decision. I do appreciate the flexibility and wanting to make it work for the community. But I think when it gets to this point, I'd really like to see it be complete.
Yes, and I agree with that as well. If I wasn't clear before, I'll make it clear now. So with that, I think we move forward with the application for the, oh, poor Bob. Everybody's sleeping out there. For the special use permit for Lake Living Services. Would the applicant please, I guess you can wait for the first question, but I'm assuming questions will come fairly quickly here.
Sure. So I'll just kind of go through my staff report a little bit. There was some discussion about the trade showroom use and what that looks like. I did mention it in the general description overview paragraph. We don't have a use that's called, home watch or handyman service. And so in kind of reviewing the definitions and what's allowed in similar uses, that's where this trade showroom came in, plumbing, lighting, upholstering. Those are actually more intense than what he's looking for. But it's a similar use, he's a tradesman, he's in construction. Some construction companies have showrooms where they invite people to come in to design their house, to pick out cabinets, materials, flooring, things like that. And I would consider them to fit into this definition of a trade showroom. And so I think it's a similar use, a lot less intense. And when we're looking at that and this use, we have this site plan and we have his narrative of what he's doing at the site. So should he sell the property to somebody else, they would have to comply with the same special use that we're approving, with the same kind of requirements and the same functioning of it. So somebody that's, similar, doesn't have the foot traffic, has limited employees. So just because we call it a trade showroom doesn't mean the next person could come in and have this full-blown showroom to sell plumbing supplies out of or something like that. So I just, to put that in perspective a little bit, that it's not a free-for-all just for the use, because we do have the application and the background information for that. So we do have this one parcel. We're very familiar with this parcel. It's zoned village residential. That some of the neighboring properties are residential. They do also own the property to the west, which is zoned village business, and is currently vacant there. We did receive those site plan existing conditions from Wade Trim at this application, and as well as a very thorough answer through the special use section of the ordinance, the information that was turned in. I mean, I feel like it was very, complete in that aspect. They provided and answered the questions. I wish more people would go through and answer all the questions for us. Makes it easier when you're reviewing it to find the answer. So it is a special use in this district. I'm just going to hit on a couple of the items I know the applicant did during their presentation. So related to the screening in Greenbelt area, I think that something should be provided unless the planning commission finds that what they have is effective out there on the site. And mostly my concern would be this kind of the south property line. I think the building, it sits along the east property line. There's not a lot of space there. There's not a lot of use. You don't have, the parking's not over there. So I think it's a limited impact on the neighbor just because the building kind of is the screening in essence. Plus, I believe there's kind of an easement that runs up there. There's just not a lot of space to put in additional landscaping or anything like that on that side. The north side kind of has a natural vegetation up there as well. So really, my thought is more on the south side to those southern neighbors. There might be something additional, but then also those houses do sit quite a ways away up by the lake. So, and they have vegetation. There's also, I think, kind of limited impacts because there's not a bunch of foot traffic that's coming in there. But that's something, the planning commission should look at and kind of discuss and decide. It's in your purview and I wouldn't consider it incomplete because they don't have that information. It's more, they've provided something, they're willing to work with you. He's told you, let them know and they'll work on that with you. So that's for the screening. Everything else is kind of provided. Like I said, the site plan has all the required information on it. Just getting into standards for approval on page 11. These are, as I mentioned, they're kind of draft findings for the planning commission to consider. They're definitely open to your interpretation, how you feel about them. And we would want to go through each one individually, like we talked about last week, and see if they're met, if you agree with what I found, or, tell me I'm wrong and that we need to change something. But all of the partially satisfied ones, I think I say see at the end of the report as conditions for approval. And these are very common conditions that you deal with, requiring a soil erosion permit before a land use permit makes sense. You wouldn't necessarily require that before they even get approval, because if they need to move something or change something, they now have another permit they need to go and amend. So that's something a lot of times you would require, after we approve it here at the planning commission, but before they actually are working on construction. I think the dumpster information.
Sarah, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Stepping back just a little bit. So this is a special use permit. If granted, then it carries forward just for this use. So if at some point the applicant sells the property, somebody could continue forward operating it this way.
Yeah.
If they wanted to change it materially, then they would have to come through a new special application, correct?
Right. Yep. And depending on what kind of changes they wanted, it would either be a minor change that has one process, or it'd be a major change and basically would be a whole
A
new
brand new application. Okay, and how do we define minor versus major?
I don't know if how the existing ordinance does that. I'd have to look at it.
Okay,
I can tell you in the draft that we're working in, it's very specific. It says if it's this, this, and this, it's a minor. Otherwise, it's a major. Then it comes back to the planning commission.
okay. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So, the dumpster details, that's definitely something, not too concerned, as long as it, meets this definition here for that. In the fire department, I don't think there would be any issue there, but just because we have that standard for accessibility and suppression and items like that, should make sure that they're comfortable with that. And then at the end of the report, I did provide some suggested conditions. I'm expecting that through our discussion, tonight. Should you approve it, you may have some conditions to add on. I'll just write them down as we go. And that would just be a part of the approval, that they have to comply with those certain items. So you'll notice in the conditions, some of the things we talked about. I also did put in the hours of operation. That was in their application. I believe they said 7:30 to 5:30. I have 7:30 to 6 here. For people and vehicles on site, I think it's reasonable to just, even though it's in the application, be specific with that. It still is kind of in a neighborhood area. We need to be mindful of the neighbors and their enjoyment of the property. If you're dealing in some commercial vehicles, you know, and right now probably not, but if you have something that has a backup alarm on it, you know, you don't want that going off at 5 a.m. when you're trying to sleep. So hours of operation. And then the additional thing has to do with the outdoor storage for materials. And so the only additional outdoor storage would be vehicles or trailers that are in designated parking spots, you know, for an overnight time or something like that. We wouldn't want to see a bunch of trailers parked around. You'd want to try to, if you need something like that, we'd need to go through some sort of a screening or some other avenue. So I think it is an option, but it's just something that's not on the plan, and I want to be very clear about what's expected, and so that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Guess it'd open up to the commission for questions.
Question for you. So he can't keep his truck and trailer parked there for the weekend?
I guess we could change overnight to overnight and weekend.
Okay. And Mr. Vermeer has to leave his property at 6 o'clock?
Yeah. I mean, hours
Is that for like employees and operation? Obviously,
yeah,
he
I mean,
can-
hours of operation, yeah. You would say that, you know, we wouldn't want him, you know, out back building something after hours, but if, you know, it's his office type of thing.
Okay. Just want to make sure he could be there after 6 o'clock.
I have the same concern. I mean, if I don't know, a lawnmower or something broke down one day and he needed it for the next day, I wouldn't want to say, you can't work on it tonight, through the night if needed. No, I would want him to be able to do that.
So, and maybe it would be something, we could either extend this out, or if you say, you know, something has to be indoors, not outdoors, you know, if you have some concerns like that.
I think in his report, he states that you're pretty much going to park inside anyway, aren't you?
If you look at the way I use in fact, the spot that I rent right now in Bel Air is almost identical in size as far as the building goes. At any given day, you know, overnight or weekend, at the most, there's like one truck and one trailer parked outside, and usually it's not even that. There's enough capacity inside the building to hold the trailers, and the trucks generally go home with me and my employee. But I can't say that there would never be a pickup truck, you know, parked overnight or through the weekend.
And some,
I was just going to back up just to clarify. So the business operation hours are from 7:30 to 6. Because I'm just thinking, as a business owner, sometimes you're at your business all hours. So, yeah, I mean, I would want him to know that he owns the property. He can be in his business whenever he wants to be, right? But you're not having people come and go between 7:30 and, is that correct?
Yeah, and we can be more specific in the language.
I'll try to paint a little, maybe take the example a little bit further to maybe help with that. I think if he's there and fixing the lawnmower at night or working on something, maybe himself and one other person, whatever, and they're quiet and they're just doing something, probably not an issue. But if his business expands and he gets more employees and you know, it really ramps it up, and then all of a sudden, you know, there's a big meeting that has to occur and there's 12 cars there because business is booming, and, and I mean, it may be a dream at this point, but for that size, but I mean, at the end of the day, that would be the concern. How do we control that in the future? So it doesn't get, to become an issue, because you have a supportive neighbor now, but if all of a sudden there's a lot of traffic later, even though it's technically not working hours, how would we protect that?
Yeah, and that would be the concern. I mean, in trying to deal with hours of operation, and I don't know, maybe you have some insight into this, and you're going to tell us you're never going to work on a lawnmower at midnight, and that makes it easy. For hours of operation, trying to balance that protection with the neighbors, but also allow him to use his property and, do what you need to do.
I think I understand what you're trying to achieve, and I totally support that. I don't want to be making noise and being obstructive to the neighbors in the evening or on the weekends. If I look at the past 7 years, if I am working past 6 o'clock, it's either quietly in the shop or I'm at my desk working on QuickBooks.
All right.
That kind of a thing. My employee, he's generally done by 5:30. I mean, I respect his time as well. So I seriously don't think it's going to be a problem, but I understand that at the same time, you need to put in some type of guideline. I'm fine with that, as long as it's reasonable, which sounds like it should be, so.
Would it work if we just took out after hours of operation, take out people and vehicles on site and leave on there, it should be limited to 7:30 to 6. So that's the hours of operation. And then leave the rest of it. I don't think you need to prohibit a person from being there or a vehicle from being there outside of those hours necessarily.
I don't really get what we'd be gaining by mentioning it at all. I mean, the whole point is to keep it quiet, right? And don't we cover that in other ways?
I think that one of the standards, I mean, you could say in the standards that it's consistent with the zone district and uses, it's compatible. I mean, that's what you're trying to do. Like I said, in his application, he mentions, what his hours of operation are. So that is in the application. It's a requirement. That's what we're approving. This was just my attempt to pull it out to make it very glaringly obvious. Should he sell his business to the next person come along, that you have to comply with these hours of operation as well.
I think, to Laura's point, I think that makes some sense. Now that I hear that, the hours of operation, if it's stated, and it remains that. So then if all of a sudden there is this extra activity that comes at night, and then it gets frustrating to the neighbors or what have you, and they complain, and then it comes forward, and then that's going to form a discussion and kind of conclusions about what could be done about it. And at that point, it could be like any noisy neighbor that's causing an issue. And I think at this point, we would have that laid out there that would say, look, here's kind of what the approval was for. So clearly there's something going on after night, and then he would have an opportunity to address it and correct it.
I understand you can't always trust somebody on their word. But at the same time, whatever you decide, if there's a problem with any of my neighbors here, I would hope that they would feel free to come to me face to face and say, hey, what are you doing at 8 o'clock or whatever? I don't know. Whatever it may be. Again, when I work on my customers' properties, our general rule of operation is between 8:30 and 5:30 on their properties. Just because for the most part, my property owners are on the lake. They're probably sleeping in at least until 8:30 in the summertime. And I don't want to be around making noise on their property when it's dinner time. So I intentionally keep my hours as much as possible within a very reasonable time frame during the day.
What time do you plow snow?
That is one difference there. That can be before 8 o'clock.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up. And
But again,
if I was to
I
plow your
have-
driveway, you're not in operation. But if you're plowing your own driveway, are you in
Yeah.
operation?
I have one commercial plow customer. The rest are residences. So again, unless if they really want me to plow before 8 o'clock, I'm not plowing before 8 o'clock in the morning,
Okay.
just out of respect for them, because again, they could be sleeping.
Well, I'm not talking
And
about
also
your
later,
customers. I'm just talking about your building.
oh, yeah, we officially start 8 o'clock in the morning. And I believe that's the reason why I put down 7:30 in the application, is that you might need a little time before that 8 o'clock hour to either clear our own parking spots and driveway.
Well, I'm out plowing at 5 a.m. So if
No.
you start that early, I just want to make sure you're covered and nobody's getting upset.
No, I'm good with the 7:30.
Okay.
Other questions?
I've got a question. One of the public speakers talked about trade showroom. We picked that because that was the closest fit to what you're intending to use? Because that,
Yeah.
when I read through the packet, that's what, looked to me, that's a more intensive use than what you're describing.
Yeah, unfortunately, my use is very hard to describe, even to an insurance company. Home watch is not a, what do they call that term for, when you fill out your taxes, and you need that 5-digit number to say what you do. Handyman is.
Yeah.
But home watch is my main focus, and yet there's not, very seldom do you see that as a defined
Right.
business category.
So the two questions I have connected to that, one is, if you fix homes, is there potential that becomes a contractor activity at this site as opposed
Well,
to?
I am a licensed contractor, but the reason I became licensed was being able to legally work on somebody's house and charge $1 for it. You were supposed to be licensed. That is why I became licensed. I do some very minor remodeling. In fact, I mentioned in my remarks, maybe a bathroom remodel. I don't build homes. I don't want to build homes. I don't put on additions to homes. I'm not equipped for that. I don't have an interest in that. I do supports helping people to be able to be in their homes, whether it's their main residence or whether it's their 12th summer home, whatever it is.
When you described the use to us, you said you expect minimal foot traffic. Would you be willing to accept conditions that keep
Oh,
it that
sure.
way to minimize?
In the last
what
7
could be
years,
something that happens as part of trade showroom, which would be a lot more foot traffic?
Yeah,
and we build that into the conditions?
I will not have a showroom.
Right.
I don't even know
Well, I mean, and I'm
what I
not
put in the
referring to
showroom.
showroom necessarily. It's just
Yeah.
customers coming there to inquire or talk to somehow
Yeah,
limit that.
I can't guarantee that there wouldn't be somebody knocking on the door, but first of all, there's usually nobody even there during the day. But secondly, in the last 7 years that I've operated out of Bel Air, twice have I had somebody come to the door, other than the mailman.
Thank you.
On that point, though, when you read the ordinance, special use section, it says that you can, after public hearing, have the power to grant special uses as specified or having a similar nature. Can't we approve this without saying that it is a trade show? I mean, can't we say it's something of a similar nature to what's listed in, whatever paragraph we're in?
I mean, if you want to call it more of a handyman business or, something like that, because it's similar, it's a little different, but it's not that takes away that showroom component,
Right.
I
And
think
I
is
put
the
one of the
issue.
conditions would be no showroom.
Right.
And I think
That's
that-
why I was asking about if you'd accept some conditions so we could prevent what your concern is, as opposed to adding a new use in the village residential.
Yeah, but
Allowable
I think
land
all of those
uses.
categories are pretty open.
Right.
I mean, as long as it fits in that type of activity, it should be okay. And I don't know that we even have to name it, because we can do it under the, what did I say? Having a similar nature portion of the ordinance.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's acceptable or not, but I would prefer to do that than to have it called a trade show.
I think that makes sense. And I think when the conditions, we can flesh it out just a little bit further too.
Okay.
I had a question on where will the dumpster be?
I thought there would be copies of the maps. We had to supply like 18 copies
I
or something.
looked for that. I didn't see it. and maybe
I know
I
there's
overlooked
small
it. So-
copies in here, but
Okay. If you could just tell me, I mean, I got the thing.
if
because
you
I
look
know-
if you're looking at the lot and the building is off to the right, there is a large, gnarly maple tree that looks like it's dead, but it's about this big around. That's where the dumpster's going, is behind that tree with a fence around it too. It would make easy access for the garbage truck to be able to come in and, hook up and do their thing to dump it. But it would be away from the building and very hard to see. Even if there wasn't a fence around it, it would be hard to see from the road.
So on page 2 of 6 in the site plan, it's on page, oh, these didn't get pages when it came through. 38, so it's gonna be 3940. It's right at the end of the parking lot near the septic system. There's a box. Yeah, it's gonna be page, I think, 40.
This is 31.
If you can see, if you're looking at the right map, if you can see where the proposed septic field is.
Yep.
It is just off to the upper right of the septic field. There's a little rectangle.
It's pretty much off by itself, covered.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And the little thing below that is the 60-inch maple.
Okay. Okay, so that was one question. And the other question really I had was around the screening. You have a very supportive neighbor that was here earlier expressing his support, which is great. Because to me, that's one of the biggest litmus tests for something like this. And so that's awesome. But to keep him supportive, as far as, there was not much room, as we talked about, between the building itself and the neighboring house right there. So can you describe a little bit further about what you had envisioned there?
What is
to
there
try to-
right now between actually the building and Agar's house? There's quite a bit of vegetation. It's not an evergreen. So right now, if you were to look out his window, he would be able to see the building. In the summertime with the leaves on, it would probably be pretty hard to see through that. But as soon as you come in front of the building, which is also kind of in front of his house because they kind of align as far as their setback, it's been mowed grass. I mean, he mows his grass. Our lot wasn't mowed traditionally. I started mowing it this past year. So it's, once it's all mowed, it's kind of hard to tell where the dividing line is. We're not against putting something more there, but at the same time, we don't want it to be obtrusive to them, being able to look out their front window and all of a sudden there's this hedge or whatever it is. It's green space. It is vegetation. But again, in front of the building, it's just grass right now.
Yep, I understand. So, and that was one of the conditions there, not conditions, one of the items that Sarah pointed out. Do other commission members have any concerns or thoughts around that? Around screening between those?
Can we ask the neighbors? I don't know. I don't have any concerns myself.
You want to ask the neighbor?
Yeah.
The material that he was referring to, the hedges and thing you can't see, that's mine. Yeah, it's our property line. He's done some work and cleaning up on the edge and this looks nice. I would prefer not to have something physically put in between us. He mows his yard, I mow my yard. It just kind of all blends together.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the commission? So with that, I think if the commission agrees, we'll move ahead and analyze it against the standards. Tim, okay?
So those are on page 12 of 71 of your packet, or 11 of 15 of the report, staff report.
Okay, so I'm not going to read the standards. We're just going to refer to them by numbered. Item number 1, if you're satisfied, any commission member, everyone agree with that?
You want to read it? I haven't found mine yet.
Oh, it's on page 11 of 15 or 12 of 71.
1271.
Yeah, we'll make sure everybody finds it first. And then, because once we get going, we can go quickly on this.
Where did you say that was, Sarah?
It's near the front.
It's
Barb.
page 12 of 71 of the packet, and the number on the lower right-hand side.
Okay, I found it.
Find it? Everybody else have it? Just to make sure. Okay, so section 18.07, standard number 1, efficiently organized in relation to the topography. Has everybody perused this? Do you agree with, does it meet the standard?
Yes.
Anybody feel it does not meet the standard? Okay. Meets standard 1 to the commission. Standard number 2, landscape should preserve by minimizing tree and soil removal. Existing landscapes retained. Meets the standard.
Yes.
Anyone have a differing opinion? Standard number 2. Standard number 3, partially satisfied, they got the soil erosion aspect here. I concur with Sarah's recommendation on a condition regarding the soil and erosion permit for the county. To me, that would address that item. Any thoughts from the commission on that? Concerns about that?
No, I agree.
I
As
agree.
long as the county, it's okay.
Item number 4, privacy. We just addressed some of this. Show satisfied here. Does the commission agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Standard number 5, all buildings or groups of buildings shall be so arranged to permit emergency vehicle access. No new buildings proposed here. It seems pretty open. Any questions or concerns on this standard from the commission? All agree on number 6, access to street, walkway, or other area dedicated. Satisfied. Questions, concerns on number 6?
No question.
So, Barbara, you good with that one?
Yep.
Okay. Number 7, provided a pedestrian circulation system insulated from the vehicular circulation system. Increase in pedestrian anticipated. I don't know that that's quite true. There might be a little bit of increase, but not very minimal. But I would say it's satisfied.
I agree. I would agree.
Any concerns on that? Number 7. Standard number 8, loading and unloading. Partially satisfied. Dumpsters are supposed to be screened, but no details provided. We've talked about that and the location of it. In my view, I'm comfortable with that. The rest of the commission on this?
Yes.
Yes.
Concerns?
Yes.
Okay. Number 9, exterior lighting. Satisfied. We've got the kind of the one main light that you showed the picture of there. Any future signage would have to oblige by the signing ordinance, correct?
Right, and that would be requiring permits for that, so we'd
Right.
review that at the time of application.
Yep. Okay. So does everyone agree that number 9 is
I
satisfied?
have,
Barbara?
I have a question about that. I don't know how the light, is this the light that you've got a picture of in here? Is that the one that's going to be on the front of the building?
Yeah, a downward hooded light, and I'm not planning on that being on overnight.
Okay, so
So,
during hours of operation, it might be on, but it wouldn't be on.
yeah, and even
overnight?
then, probably only this time of year, because again, once 6 o'clock rolls around the summertime, the
Okay.
sun's still high.
Can we make that a condition, just because I heard from the neighbor across the street, across M88, that they don't know because it's not up there yet, but they're concerned about that light because that's directly up their driveway from their house. So
So light to be shut off after our.
Only turned on during hours of operation. Something like that, that work?
Yes.
Does the light meet code?
Yeah.
Well, then I say let him have his light on if it meets code.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point of having a light if you have to shut it off when it's dark?
I mean, he's doing what he's told. It's shining down. It's got a hood.
Yeah, I think with our lighting, it's not supposed to extend beyond the property.
Right.
So if it's meeting that, I don't think it should be a concern.
If he's following all codes, I don't see why we shouldn't grant it.
I guess for the question for the applicant, one of the commission members pointed that out. I mean, I would worry a little bit about the light as you have now meets the requirements and looks like it'd be fine. To the extent that you end up putting something broader, I guess it would be protected from doing that, right? Like one of those big old spotlights
Right.
type
Yeah.
of thing.
And I don't want a motion detector. It'll be going off all the time when the deer go by, so. Unless if it was a security issue, I don't see any reason to have it on through the night.
Okay, so you would you'd be fine with that condition at this point?
Yes.
Okay. I guess my only concern about that would be that if you're there in the evening and you need it on to see to get out to your car,
Yeah,
I don't.
if I can have that, but again, I'm not going to be there, through the night or anything like that.
Okay. Maybe something even as simple as saying it, off at the middle of the night, so it's not, it shuts off at 10 PM to.
Yeah, I mean, when do most people turn off their outside porch light?
Never. My husband complains about that. I never shut off.
So I think,
What's the planning commission's desire on that? I've got two that don't want any regulations. We got only during hours of operation. What's the majority here?
If he's okay with it, okay. I
Yeah.
hate to limit somebody, but if you're okay with it and everybody else wants it.
Yeah, if I happen to be there working in the office until 7 or 8, if I need to have the light on to be able to get to my car or whatever, then if that's all right.
I mean, I don't really know how that
Yeah,
would work because you're leaving, so the light's gotta be shut off, so,
It's ridiculous.
like how, I guess you can have Alexa shut your light off,
Right, you could, but do they have
Be on a
internet?
timer or something too.
Well,
Timer.
I'm with Jason on this. It's meeting the ordinance. We're trying to legislate being a good neighbor.
Yeah.
Sort of with this. And if he's wants to accept something, then I guess we ought to define it to be flexible enough, like 3 hours after sunset, something. But we are starting to legislate whether or not he's a good neighbor. And it sounds like to the neighbor that came up, he is. I feel like we're reaching a little bit here with
what if we
trying to limit.
got
light
away from the
use.
time, but he gave a plan for a light that shined down, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And a condition would be consistent, that, the light would consistent with the design shown, something to that effect, so that the light blows up or breaks. And so it's no longer, you putting a new light up there has to be a similar downward projecting light so that we won't run into that issue of changing it. So maybe put that in as a condition. Would that be acceptable to the commission? Okay.
It doesn't seem necessary because we already say it, but sure.
True. Okay, that's number 9. Number 10, all approaches to paved public roads should be surfaced with bituminous asphalt, concrete, or similar pervious or impervious materials. I think this is satisfied, although I assume it is based on the conditions, but it's hard in the snow to
Doesn't have
know
any
that.
public roads anyway. It's just talking about the public roads or approaches to. I
Two
see.
approaches to.
Yeah, okay.
What is the surface that you have there?
It's mainly dirt now. I'm putting gravel down.
It's going to be gravel, okay.
Yeah, so gravel, hard pack gravel.
Okay. Okay, standard number 11.
Excuse me, on 10, everybody agrees?
Does everybody agree on 10?
Yes.
Yes. Good call, thank you. Item number 11. I believe this is satisfied. Any questions?
No.
Yeah.
Discussion? Item number 12, standard number 12. All streets proposed, I think that's by definition meets it here. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Standard number 13. Says conditions at the end of the report. What was the condition for that one?
Fire department approval prior to land use
Yeah,
permit.
makes good sense. Okay, subject to the fire department approval, is everybody satisfied with number 13?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, number 14. Adequately screened with native vegetation. I think we talked about this. I think we're good there.
Yeah, we're good.
Any concerns on 14? Item number 15. Applicable requirements of township, county, and subject to the conditions that we have at the end. I think that one's satisfied. Any concerns? Okay, standard 15 is approved or an agreement.
Yep.
Special use. So Sarah, we go through these exact same process now at this point?
Yep, yeah, because these are just because it is a special use, you have these 4 additional standards
Yep.
that have to be met, so.
Okay. So this is section 17.01, standard number 1. Do we believe that this is consistent with a special use? I think we've talked about this.
I do.
Does it meet standard? Good. Standard number 2. I think we've discussed this as well.
Yes.
You heard directly. Okay, standard number 2 is met. Standard number 3. I think we've concluded with that,
Yep.
especially subject to the conditions. Number 4. I think we've concluded on that one. So standards number 3 and number 4 is all the commission good with all of those?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's all of them.
Yeah, do we want to just touch on the conditions to make sure everybody's on the same
Yes.
page for what conditions are going to be required?
So I think that we articulate that as part of the motion.
Yeah, I
We
like,
should probably summarize it first.
yeah, I think summarize it, because then you can just say, as conditions stated, and then the minutes will throw the conditions in the motion after
Okay.
it.
So, so the conditions that we've discussed so far are outside agency permits, including soil erosion, required part of the land use permit.
Yes.
Number 2, dumpster details to be provided to staff for approval. And I think he's provided those. There might be a little bit of clarification there, but Sarah, that would be provided to you. Fire department sign off. Hours of operation, 7:30 to 6.
Were we going to strike the people and vehicles on site portion of that sentence? I know Barbara mentioned that.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Yeah, okay.
So that was stricken. So now it should just read, hours of operation shall be limited to 7:30 a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. Outdoor storage of materials or vehicles except vehicles and trailers may be parked in designated parking spaces overnight.
And we were going to add and weekends or
And
weekends.
weekends. Yes.
Probably
We were gonna add
overnight or weekend.
So can you read that, what you have now, Sarah?
Yeah, outdoor storage of materials or vehicles except vehicles and trailers may be parked in designated spaces overnight, or I'm going to say over the weekend.
Okay. Another one was no showroom.
I
Condition.
like that for clarification if it's planning commission.
Okay.
Sorry, I missed
So the
that.
last standard that we were going to add would not be a showroom, would not serve as a showroom.
Right.
Okay.
And then I have number 7, lighting shall be similar to proposed in the plan for the lighting, because we had that discussion about they have to replace the fixture or change it. It should be similar to the one that was in
Yeah,
our
correct.
approval document.
I think Laura's point is well taken. That's the way it was approved in the first
Right.
place. So it would be a violation of the permit and start, but I think for further clarification to address that issue. Okay. So with that, can we have a motion on to approve the,
Yeah, so
trying to-
you're
where's
going to
that?
have, yep, your motion is to approve the special use permit for Lake
Yeah.
Living as it meets all of your standards for approval with the conditions that were listed. That'd be your motion.
Okay, so can somebody make that motion?
If I can remember it all.
I didn't write, you can just say what she said. I'll make that motion, is what you need to say.
We can do that?
Yeah?
Oh, then let's do that before.
I make the motion to what Sarah said.
I'll second your motion to what you said.
Discussion? No discussion? Let's do a roll call vote on this. You ready? Jason?
Yes.
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Chair says yes.
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 Motion approved. I guess unanimously 7-0, or 8.
Thank you.
So thank you, and congratulations. Appreciate your time and clarifications this evening. So now we move to the next portion of the agenda here, which is unfinished business, section 2.16 high water mark. Sarah, can you just walk us through this particular, we have some information
Sure.
for
sure.
commission members.
Yeah, and so I just put a little cover letter on this. It's got the same exact language that we've been, dealing with that you saw in, I guess that was November. But Denise did do a little bit more research and provided this email related to the high water mark. I don't know, Denise, if you have anything additional to add, or if everybody's pretty clear. I mean,
Well, I would recommend that if you go into that site, the first site she, whatever her name was, Carrie somebody.
yeah, Carrie Kent.
Yeah, Carrie Kent, because it was quite a long document about precedent and, what people do about high water mark for inland lakes. And the one that resonated with me, if we were to pursue this, is the protection of water quality by creating a standard berm, vegetation berm. And then the other article that she referenced is Lake Charlevoix the whole lake has a high water mark based on that very concept of the protection of the water. I'm not saying I wouldn't be for it. I just don't think right now for me, there isn't enough evidence I don't know the problems that it creates by not having the high water mark. So, and based on what other inland lakes in Michigan have practiced, I think it just deserves more research.
And I would concur with that. In prior meetings, we discussed this, that we were going to have to bring this forward at a future meeting and kind of take a fresh look at it, because it was something that was started by the commission with prior members. And there's a lot of open questions around it. Kind of similarly to what you discovered working with Carrie Kent, I also had some conversations with a consultant that specializes in kind of reviewing erosion, high water marks, working with Eagle, things of that nature, and started to have a conversation with him just to get his thoughts, and wanted to finish that too, to bring that in as well, about how to address something like this, because he might have, similar to Carrie, some thoughts on it. So I think, Sarah, we'd like to bring that on an agenda, maybe at our next regular meeting,
Okay.
if not sooner.
Yeah, and that's how this ended up here. We dealt with it. We haven't had a regular meeting, so I just brought it over as old business to continue. Plus Denise had that email, so I wanted to get that out to you so you could take a look at it and do more research. So yeah, we can throw it on the next agenda as unfinished business. At this point, I'm not going to include any additional information unless you need something from me. But if, any of the planning commissioners come up with anything and you want to have it in the packet, we, put the packets out. We try a week before. So send that over. So if you have a discussion with this, this individual, and you can make a little notes of what you talked about, I'll throw that in so everybody can take a look at it and start thinking about it before coming to the meeting. But you're always welcome to come to the meeting with the information as well. Just up to you.
That sounds good. So that's it for unfinished business. Concerns of the commission. I'll start, I don't per se have any concerns, just wanted to say I appreciate and thank both the applicants and the commission members this evening. A long meeting. We knew it was going to be kind of long going into it. We had a lot packed in, but thank you for your patience and due diligence going through the items tonight. From the members, any concerns or comments?
No, I was just gonna say, you're right, we did work on the high water mark, and I know Mr. Stoodiron looked into it quite extensively, so if any of you have questions, he might be able to help you, because we talked about that for a couple months. So,
I think to that point, Jason, maybe assuming that Mr. Stoodiron's available at that upcoming next meeting, to maybe have arranged for him to be here to discuss, kind of walk us through and refresh our memories of some of the things that he had found and researched, in addition to the items.
sorry,
that he's
Bill,
provided
if you're,
tonight. So
if you're willing,
I'm more than happy to. I've got stacks of paper up and stuff.
I know you
I think
do.
that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, I think personally, it's the last thing that I ever wanted to learn about, and I don't live on the water, but I guess here I am. I'm gonna have to understand exactly how that surveyor does it. So I'd be interested in actually understanding it. I don't know if there's like a high water mark survey for dummies that you can point us to. And then also, I feel like the cost has come up in a couple of things that people, community members have brought to us. So it'd be good to understand, what does that really cost? And when would you expect to need to get that survey? Please, and thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll move back to public commentary. If anyone has some comments they'd like to make, please come forward.
Lyle Johnston, 12305 3rd Street. My apologies. I'm struck by the youth and vigor and precision of the commission. However, I've had a house here for 55 years, and I suggest that you look into the history of the 3rd Street road end. About 15 years ago, it was a very nasty affair, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Dun, dun, dun.
Road end.
Sarah, for a future discussion, maybe bring that up to, would like to understand that.
I feel like there were a couple.
Road end, yeah.
things tonight.
So with that, there's any other public commentary for the evening? If not, we have completed our agenda items for tonight. We have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
What he said.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I think we're good. Thank you.